In this video, I show you how to combine a portrait shot by Mark Wallace in Phoenix, Arizona with my background, photographed just outside London in England.
Adorama TV presents Take and Make Great Photography with Gavin Hoey, where you'll learn how to take stunning photos and then polish them in post-production. Here's your host, Gavin Hoey.
Hello, I'm Gavin Hoey and you're watching Take and Make Great Photos, brought to you by Adorama, the camera store that really does have everything for us photographers. Now today I've come to London, but I'm not alone in London because I have all the way from Phoenix, Arizona, Mr. Mark Wallace.
I brought you something.
What have you bought there?
This is a
Are we
photo.
going to turn it around?
Oh sure, we can turn it around.
I have a memory card all the way from Phoenix, Arizona. That's amazing.
This is very, very important because as you recall, on Exploring Photography, we were just here.
Oh, that seems like so long ago.
I know, it does seem so long ago. And I was talking about how I just didn't have enough time to explore England. And so I actually shot something in Phoenix in my studio for you to throw into Photoshop and do some wizardry. So tell us what you're gonna do.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna get this card, we're gonna pop it in the computer, and then in Photoshop, we're gonna extract the amazing photo, which I'm presuming is a
beautiful model, I'm sure.
Of some sort. And we're going to put a brand new background that we're going to shoot here in London, and we're going to add the background in Photoshop. And I'm going to do that right now. So now I've had a chance to have a look at the pictures that Mark sent me, and he sent some great pictures of Sam. And originally I thought, well, let's put her in a London background. Now I'm thinking, actually looking at them, she looks much more kind of a country person. So I'm going to take some pictures out here in the countryside. Now, despite what Mark says, it's not always gloomy in England. In fact, today it's actually really quite sunny. But to match the lighting that Mark's created, I've actually come somewhere that's a little bit more shaded. So we're under the trees in the woods here, and we've got a beautiful carpet of bluebells, and that's going to make a beautiful background for the pictures of Sam. So let's get some pictures in the bag. So I'm going to use my Canon 5D Mark II and my 24-105. Mark was working around about the 35mm end of the lens. So I'm going to work in that area, more or less, maybe 10mm either side should be fine. That way we match the distortion between his pictures and mine. So I'm going to be working in, well, let's see, I could just put it in aperture priority mode. I'll choose f8 because it's a middle of the road aperture. That will give me plenty of depth of field, and we'll take a picture. Now when I do that, I get a picture that looks pretty good, but although I'm in shade here, just beyond the picture it is quite bright, despite how it looks on the video. So I'm actually going to do a little HDR sequence. So I'm going to switch to manual. I'm going to start my exposure at about 200th of a second, f8, ISO 100, and we'll take a picture. Hopefully that should be more or less black, yeah, with just a bit of detail in the highlights. Now I'm going to wind it down 2 stops. That's a 50th of a second, and I'll take another picture, and then I'll wind it down 2 stops. That's a 13th of a second, and I'll take another picture, and then we'll keep going down another 2 stops. That's 6 clicks on my little wheel. That's how I'm doing it. I'm adding 6 in my head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 clicks of the wheel. That's 2 stops of light. I'm using self-timer to do this because that means that I'll remove any camera shake. And of course I'm using my favourite tripod, my Vanguard 283 CT tripod, and that's giving me a nice stable shot. Okay, so those are the pictures in the bag. Let's get these back onto the computer and we'll get the picture of Sam up and we'll start to merge them together. And I think we're going to do this in Photoshop Elements. So you're probably asking yourself, why am I using Elements, not Photoshop, which is what I normally use? Well, I get asked by a lot of people whether Photoshop Elements is a viable, low-cost alternative to Photoshop. And the simple answer is yes, it is. It's got all of the major tools of Photoshop, including the RAW processor. It's slimmed down in a few areas, but most of them you're not going to notice too much. And it can do really advanced stuff, like the picture we're going to create here, using the edge detection features that you'd find in Photoshop. Now, obviously there's a lot of work goes into this picture, and with the time I've got available in this video, sadly I can't cover everything, but I'm going to give you an overview of the most important things that you're going to need. If you want to look at a deeper version of this, a deep dive video, I'll pop one on my own YouTube channel on gavtrain.com, and I'll show you how to do more work inside of Photoshop. Okay, so let's start by taking the picture that Mark shot. This is the picture all the way from Phoenix, and it's great. Of course, it started life as a RAW file. To save a bit of time, I've brought it straight into Elements as a JPEG. I haven't actually done anything to it in RAW. I've kept it pretty much untouched, just cropped it a little bit. Now, what I'm going to do is select Sam from the background and remove the background. Now, I'm going to start with the quick selection tool here. You can use whatever selection tool you like. I'm just going to make a very quick and rough selection over Sam like that. And around we go, building it up as we go. It's a good idea to let go of the mouse every now and again, just in case your selection goes wrong and you have to press Ctrl-Z or Command-Z to undo. If that happens, then you don't have to go right back to the beginning. Alternatively, if it suddenly jumps to the side, you can just hold the Alt key and say, actually, no, take that bit away. Whatever way works for you. But what you're looking for is a really neat selection. I know it's called the quick selection tool, but we're trying to be quick and accurate at the same time. So that's got the important bits in. That's got the whole body selected. And then we're going to go around and do the hair. Now, hair for a lot of people is a nightmare to select, and it's the same for me as well, which is why I was very pleased to see Mark had made a picture of Sam here wearing a hat. That makes life a lot easier when it comes to selection, but where would be the challenge in that, eh? That would be way too easy. So I'm just going to make a selection over the main bits of her hair, and we'll come back and we'll fine-tune it with Refine Edge in just a minute. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm happy with everything there. That all looks fine. Yeah, now the only thing I've got to remember, of course, is to do the bits between her arm and her body, because they need to be removed as well. So I'll hold the Alt key or the Option key on a Mac, and I'll just remove those bits as well, like so. Okay, so that's done my quick selection. Now we're going to improve the selection over the hair area. And to do it, I'm going to use Refine Edge, which is a button here in Elements. It's down the bottom. In Photoshop, it's down the top. Or down the top? No, it would be up the top, of course. Or you can go to Layer, and you can even go to Select, and then choose Refine Edge. It's there somewhere, trust me. What you're looking for is edge detection. Now, this is a new feature found in Elements 11, Photoshop CS5, and CS6. And it works exactly the same in all three of those bits of software. So even though Elements is, what, 1/10 of the price of Photoshop, it's got the same power to make hair selection a lot easier. If I just open up the radius here, you'll see how it goes and finds all of the hair edges. It really is quite clever. But as I go down, you can see it's done a bit of a bad job on the shoulders. So what I'm going to do is keep the radius quite small, so it gives a nice selection around the hard edges of the body. And then I'm going to paint in with the paintbrush here my own radius. And I'm just going to paint that around the outside. Now all a radius is you saying to Elements, or Photoshop, have a look in this area for hair, or fur, or feathers, or leaves, or whatever it is, those little fine fluffy edges that are really hard to select any other way. Now there's a few things you need to know. First of all, this tool will not find every last hair. It's just not that good. It will find most of them. It'll find the important stuff, and that's good enough. It really is, because it's easy to think that you need the most accurate, amazing selection in the world, when in reality you can actually get away with a fairly rough and ready selection, because we're going to blend this into a background. Okay, so I'm happy with that. That will do nicely. One little tip is to click on the Decontaminate Colors. Always decontaminate your colors, partly because it improves the edge selection, but mostly because when you exit out, you always get a layer mask, and if you've missed any large chunks, that layer mask will allow you to go and add them back in. Okay, so let's get the picture of Sam, and we'll grab the Move tool, and I'll drag Sam off of that picture onto the tab with my background image. Now you saw me go out and shoot this in the field. This is the HDR sequence. I've already joined it together, and we've got a video on Adorama TV on how I make my HDRs inside of Photoshop. So if you want to go and see that, you can go and watch that video and catch up. I've also made some light flares coming out through the sky as well. Now obviously Sam's a little bit big for this image, so let's go to Image, Transform, Free Transform. We'll go find a corner handle and we'll bring her in and down, and she probably wants to be about that kind of size really, something like that. We'll just drag her across and we'll pop her down here somewhere. Yeah, I think around about there, maybe just a little bigger. Okay, that'll do. We'll click on the tick. So she's now into the scene, but as you can see, it really doesn't look right. It's the lighting on the model, it doesn't match the lighting in the background. And also the colours. The model is in a much warmer tone. Well, it is always warmer, I'm sure, in Phoenix than it is in the UK, where it's a little bit colder in my picture behind. So I need to match those two things up. Let's do the lighting first. So I'm going to come to my layers panel, and on the panel here I'm going to click on the adjustment layers, and I'm going to add a brightness and contrast adjustment layer. Now adjustment layers change everything below the adjustment layer. So if I make the brightness more, you can see that, well, Sam gets brighter, but so does the background. What I'm going to do is click in this small arrow down the bottom. It's the same arrow that's in Photoshop, and it creates what's called a clipping layer. And it clips the adjustment layer only to the layer directly below. If you have a look on the layers here, there's the adjustment layer, the layer below is our model. So now only Sam gets brighter and darker. So I've now separated her out and I can adjust the brightness. I want to make it a little bit brighter because we've got this lovely backlit scene. And the reason I chose this picture of the many that Mark shot was because of this beautiful lighting coming in from behind. Now we're going to emphasize that even more. So I'm going to click on the layer with the picture of Sam and I'm going to zoom in. Now this is a destructive process that I'm about to do, so if you're not absolutely confident in where you're going, make a copy of this layer before you start. I'm going to get the Dodge Burn and Sponge tool, and I'm going to make sure it's on the Dodge tool here, and we're set to mid-tones, and I'm just going to brighten up her shoulders. So we're just going to lighten those areas in because we've got this lovely light coming through, and we'll do the same on her hair as well, and we want to simulate that in the picture. Now we're also, because we have such a strong backlit scene, we're also going to lighten up her shoulder around the other side, which I know is technically in darkness, or at least in shadow, but it just adds a little bit in there and just makes the whole thing feel a little bit more part of the original background. We'll also add some light coming through here. You can see there's some light in there anyway, and we'll just emphasize that. But there's a weird, I can see just a slight darkness coming through there, so I'll just take that down. We'll bleed that away. There we go. So that just looks a little better and bleeds in really nicely to the background. So all in all, I'm happy with the way that's looking. Now we're going to add some colour, because what we've got here is Sam underneath a canopy of green trees. And of course the light coming through would have a green tinge. So let's make a brand new layer. And on this layer, I'm going to make sure my foreground colour, well, let's click it, and I'll choose a green colour from within the image. Click OK. And then I'm just going to get the paintbrush tool, and I'm going to paint green where there's highlights. Okay, so there's highlights here, here, there's some around here, a little bit on the hair, of course, like that. There's a little highlight down there. Okay, so anywhere where there's a highlight, I've painted green, but of course it doesn't quite work properly because all we've done is painted green. So let's change the layer blending mode from normal to color. And then we'll change the opacity down to about 30–40%, something like that, just so there is a nice little green tinge coming through. I'm going to get the eraser tool. You could use a layer mask, of course, and we're just going to erase that back in places. It helps to feather it in, and we'll remove it from the face as well. And that looks really good. That gives a wash of green colour just over certain parts of the picture, and that helps to sell this as being one continuous lighting scene. I think we could just do with a splash more green just here and there. There we go. Okay, now you could stop there, but one last little trick that I like to do is just to blend everything together by making a new layer right at the top. Empty, nothing in it at all. I'm going to hold down Alt, Control and Shift. That's Option, Command and Shift on a Mac. And then I'm going to go to Layer and choose to Merge Visible. And that will make a merged copy layer at the top of the stack. Up to Filter, down to Blur, Gaussian Blur, and we'll blur this about 30 pixels. And then I'm going to blend the blurry layer with the sharp one below, either by using Screen or by using Overlay. And I think Overlay at a much lower opacity should give me exactly the look that I'm going for. And there you go, there's the final picture created. 2 different continents, 1 single image. Okay, so there you go. There's how you can remove a background and add a brand new one of your own choice. Now, if you want to see more videos from Adorama TV, from me and from Mark and from many other great presenters, then don't forget, all you've got to do is subscribe.
Click the subscribe button!
I'm Gavin Hoey. Thanks for watching.
Bye!
Do you want great looking prints at low cost? Be sure to visit our easy to use online printing service. Adorama Pix has professionals who treat your images with the utmost care that you can count on. For a quick turnaround on photos, cards, or albums, use AdoramaPix.com.